they talk a lot about this kind of future promising, this fake future promising about how things could be and how wonderful it could be and what a connection you're going to have. Hello and welcome to Romance Scams and How to Avoid Them.
Now, I have seen The Tinder Swindler on Netflix TV. I'm sure a lot of people will have done. I mean, I was absolutely gobsmacked because these were beautiful, bright, engaging women who got completely slam dunked by a fraudster. And it happens. I mean, it happens a lot, doesn't it?
It does. And it happens to the best of people out there, men and women. Women are slightly less likely, in fact, to get done over by a swindler. But it does amount to staggering $1.3 billion per year estimated is what the romance scammers are managing to extract out of people who think that they're in love with them. And it is really interesting that you mentioned The Tinder Swindler, which of course was a big Netflix show and kind of took the world by storm. It was a very public example of multiple women that got swindled by him, but it was also a bit unusual. Normally, the swindlers, if that's what we're going to call them, the romance scammers, are not in person. A lot of the scamming is done remotely. So this was an unusual one, and not to say it's so unusual it doesn't happen often, because it does, but maybe that's what we should start talking about. Should we start with the in-person scammer as opposed to the online one, both of which you could become a victim of if you're dating online?
But I'm also interested in, I mean, is this as old as the hills? Has this always gone on? Or is it because we're now, dating has changed and it's gone online? Is it easier for fraud to happen through romance?
So on the scale that we're seeing it now, never before has this been possible before online dating. People would traditionally date within a small community. They'd be dating the kid that they went to primary school with. They'd be dating someone within their village. It's not really until we've moved on to people traveling, the advent of airplanes and air travel that allows people to get around the world, and of course the internet, that means that you can turn up in a new location, you can turn up in a new place and present yourself how you want to present yourself. That's not to say that you couldn't be scammed by someone that you do know. You can be, but it certainly allows the access to far more people. So the in-person scammer that you've just talked about, that, of course, is a lot easier if you're in a new community, a different community, if you've left your village. But the online scammer, that is something that has really taken hold. And that's probably the majority of scams that are going on. And these are fraudsters that represent themselves to be any number of different types of people in order to hook the other person, tell them that they're in love with them, and scam them. But there's a lot we've still got to talk about how they do that and the process.
And it's generally money. They're after money.
They're after money. So these what we're talking about right now and in this conversation is romance scammers who are aiming to persuade you that they are the right person, that you are falling in love. And the idea behind it is to tap into your emotions, to take advantage of the fact that you might be a little bit vulnerable when you're getting out there and opening your heart to someone, and that you're also trusting. So part of the process in dating is to let your barriers down, is to have your heart open to possibility and opportunity. And these fraudsters take advantage of that. I don't want people to, and we'll probably talk about this at the end as well, I don't want people to be scared or worried that they're automatically going to be defrauded. But I do really enjoy, if that's the right word, talking about this topic, because I do think there's so many simple signs that you can look out for and be aware of to make sure that you're not a victim. And for me, being a matchmaker in this industry, I want to spread the word as much as I can to try and help as many people, because it's not just that you're going to end up losing your money. If you are a pensioner, and most of these scams are happening between 55, 65 age group, although it's those 65 to 75 that seem to lose the most money. But we are talking about people who've spent their working life, who've worked incredibly hard and who've put away a nest egg for their later years, who are being targeted. So they are a vulnerable group. And what that means is they're not just losing potentially what they've worked for their entire working life, but because they've been scammed at that age, they can also lose their trust in people. This was their chance to find love at a later time period. And so they can end up in court, or they can end up feeling very vulnerable and very alone. And we know that can take a real toll on people's mental health to have gone through this degree of cruelty.
Okay, so let's roll our sleeves up, get down to business. What are the signs to look for?
When it comes to romance scammers, there are some common things that they do. Because they are targeting, so one group of people that does this, they are in almost a farm-like situation. I don't mean like a farm with goats and cows. I mean a farm where there are banks and banks and banks of computers. And what people are doing in these teams, so it is an organized crime. The main is an organized crime rather than an individual criminal. They are targeting people all day long online, and they're using fake photographs. So what they do is they find photographs online of course, if you're on social media, these photographs can easily be copied. They take photographs of people that they think might be attractive. And they quite often steal photographs of people in the military because that's a really good story. Or they pick pictures of people with a dog, with kids. That's not to say all pictures with dogs and kids are scammers, but it's just to give you a bit of a background. You're beginning to think, my goodness, this is not narrowing it down. But what they do is they pick fake pictures. So the person that you are speaking to is not the person in the photograph, and the person in the photograph has no idea that this scam is going on. And what they do is they have set pieces of text that they send out because they know over time that certain pieces of information work. So a sob story often works. So the fact that they've been widowed or they've lost a long-term partner and that they've gone through a period of being heartbroken, what that does is it tells the other person that they are someone who can be in a long-term relationship because they lost a partner through no fault of their own. So it shows that there's someone who is vulnerable and was not at fault for the relationship failing. And there's also an element of sympathy. If you hear of someone that's lost their partner, you're more likely to feel sympathetic towards that person. And you're going to, again, your defenses are going to be slightly lowered. They use, as I said, common tracts of information. So they'll talk extensively about their families and their pets and what's important to them. And they try to move very quickly to creating a connection with you. They move very quickly to discussing emotions and how they feel about you and what they want to happen with you. If this is a purely online scam and not an in-person scam, you, of course, there'll be reasons why you can't meet them. So they could be, again, if they're in the military, it could be because they're away on assignment. If they are a worker working in a dangerous location, they simply are they'll look at a satellite phone that they've got very little access to. There's always a very good reason why the online scammer can't meet you. Sometimes they go as far as to prepare to meet you. So they talk about, I'm going to get a flight booked and I'm going to travel on this date and we're going to go to this place. They talk a lot about this kind of future promising, this fake future promising about how things could be and how wonderful it could be and what a connection you're going to have. They hang on to the things that you like. So if you say that you love cats and you love horses, they love cats, they love horses. They try to work in parallel and tandem to the things that you're saying. So you think, isn't this brilliant?
And it's not just over text message. This might be phone calls as well. But I'm presuming somebody like this wouldn't want to be doing a Zoom call because they're not the person that you've been seeing in the photograph.
Absolutely. AI, of course, is slightly problematic with this because we know that AI, you can fake this. So my forecast is that over time, there will be more of these people who will be able to take that image and appear to be that person. So we know that AI is coming into play with this. I've also had stories of people using a latex mask, which sounds completely bonkers, but it has
an image.
It has spitting image. It has happened, and so. But you're absolutely right. What they will try and do is they will also try and get you off the online dating app very quickly, because every app out there, no matter what you think about the app, does work hard to prevent romance scamming. They don't want to be associated with it. They want to protect their paying clients from this. And so if they start to use the kind of terminology, the kind of words that would cause a red flag back at HQ, they will be shut down very quickly. So it is very important to the scammer to get you offline. They might have a variety of reasons. Oh, I'm getting deluged with people that are wanting to talk to me, and I want to focus on you. They might say, I've come to the end of my membership. I can't believe I've met you at the end of my membership, but I'm no longer going to be paying because now I've met you, I'm going to come off the app. There's always a variety of reasons why they need to switch it and why it's easier, but they want to get you off the app as quickly as possible, which is actually a really good question that you asked there, because it leads me on to giving a little bit of advice, which is stay on the app as long as you possibly can. Don't allow them to switch you to email or to WhatsApp or to iMessage, whatever the thing is, because straight away you're also giving them more personal information that actually you probably wouldn't want to give a complete stranger. So if they refuse to stay talking to you on the online, that's a really major red flag. There is no good reason for someone to want to move off the app onto a more private method of communication unless there's an issue.
Wow. Actually, I'm smiling slightly because the military thing actually happened to a friend of mine, and she was telling me about this guy, and it just seemed, she was so excited, and it just seemed so obviously wrong to me. But she wouldn't listen to reason. I mean, it's very hard. What do you do if somebody's excited and telling you about, this particular guy who can only speak to you on a particular type of phone because it has to be encrypted, or, he can't come over it's such a shame he can't come over on the date he thought he was coming over because he's got to be on military exercise and he can't tell you about it because it's all hush hush. I mean, to me, it was so obvious, and yet, he'd obviously worked very hard and really drawn her in.
It's really heartbreaking. And I've experienced it as well with people that I know, in trying to persuade and convince them that what is happening is a scam. And it's one of those psychological things where people don't really want to believe that it's not true, but it's also a sense of having been charmed, that the charm is there. And there's something about, if you have been feeling a bit lonely, or you've not been with someone for a while, to have someone saying to you the things that you want to hear it's very beguiling. There's something very, very, you feel drawn to that person who's making you feel good. And so a part of you that probably knows there's something not 100% wants to just give it a chance, give it an opportunity. No one wants to think that they have disregarded someone who could have been the love of their life. And you can be swept up very quickly. These are very skilled operators. You are not earning hundreds of millions into the billions by not being good at what you're doing. And these scammers are very, very good. And remember, if they're working in a team, so if we're talking about a team with the banks and computers, people can say, if you start to say something tricky, or there'll be someone there they'll have set answers, they'll have the head of their team can step in and help and work it out and get you to the point they need to get you to. But they try to engender a sense of excitement. The fact that there's risk involved in their life, the fact that the comms go down, they make you feel as though you are part of what's going on in their life. You're this duo, this Bonnie and Clyde, out there together, going through this exciting time period. And you feel wanted and desired and needed. And you see this, dashing hero, it could be, if we're talking about a male scammer, you can see that you're part of what they're doing. And if it's a female scammer, or if they're representing themselves to be a female scammer, because again, we actually don't know the gender of the person with the fake photographs, they can perhaps present themselves as being vulnerable. They can present themselves as being, a highly attractive woman who maybe had a child younger and is struggling, but, there's always a story that makes you think, gosh, that person's really struggling, and, I could really help. And once you're pulled in, once you're sucked in, once you think that you're in a relationship with this person and they've talked about marriage, they've talked about all the things that they know that you want, that's when the trouble starts.
And how do they generally ask for money? Because the bottom line is they're trying to get money out of you.
They are. And there's a number of techniques. So it could be as simple as, I'd really love to phone you, but it's so expensive to call you and my phone broke. It could start off simple. Can you please send me the money? I want to hear your voice. I want to be able to have this relationship, but I can't, my financial situation, I can't afford a phone. So you're then sending the money for the phone. I need money for the credits, but the credits aren't working. Can you please send, the top up didn't work. I went down there and they took my money and they scammed me when I tried to get the top up for the phone. Please give, someone's stolen the phone. So there's little ways.
You're so convincing, Gillian. It's terrifying.
There's little ways to do it when it comes to that. And then there's the bigger ways. And this would be more for the people who've claimed they're in the military, they're perhaps at sea. And that would be the ones at sea quite often is a major piece of equipment that has failed and they're unable to get the comms out. They're for whatever, imagine a scenario where they needed your help rather than the head of the company that owns this oil rig. But that's exactly what happens. And they'll send photographs of the equipment that's broken and how they've got no support and no help and la 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 la. And so what ends up happening is you're literally sending money to, in quotes, replace a piece of equipment on an oil rig. I mean, this is the problem. It sounds crazy, but when you're involved in it, it's 100% believable. And then when it comes to the military, again, it could be anything. It could be that they're posted in a foreign country with very few comms and they've received a message. You know that they're a widow, they're not married. You receive a message that their kid has been involved in God forbid, an accident. And so therefore they need the money because they can't afford the hospital fees or they can't access their cash. They could access their cash, but because they're offshore, they can't access their bank account. That's another big one. I'm offshore. I can't access the bank account. I've only got this old satellite phone, like kind of, pressing the buttons. There's no, screen that I could do online banking. I just need you to cover the fees, but I'm going to be back ashore in a week's time. And there's always a really good, seemingly valid, seemingly plausible reason why you should step in. And if you think you're falling in love with someone or you feel like you're falling in love with this scammer, you're more than likely to step up and say, well, of course I'm going to help. Who wouldn't help a good friend or a partner in need? And although they've not met this person, they have that same sense of, I'm going to step up. I'm going to help them. I'm the right person to help in this emergency.
So what are the rules?
The rules to avoid a scammer, the rules to...
Or if you, say, you've been getting on well with somebody and suddenly you get I can't afford to call you, could you wire some money? Or, how do you really know whether it's genuine or whether you're kind of being drawn into a scam?
So the basic one for online scams is never, we used to say, never, ever give money to someone that you haven't met. That was the traditional rule. That was the easy rule. Never, ever give money to someone you haven't met. But there is a small division of scammers that has always been pervasive. They've always been there, but it's a smaller percentage who are in-person scammers. And so my first rule is still stands, but you kind of need a bit of an addendum for the in-person scammer. And the in-person scammer is also on the rise as well. And the in-person scammer is the person that you do meet in person who presents a certain facade to you. The scamming can start extremely early. I've heard of the scammer on a first date saying to the person, we're getting older now. And this is a true story. We're getting older now. And if something was to happen to me, I would want you to benefit from my estate. So I want to write you into my estate. And of course, if something was to happen to you, I'd want to be written into yours. And this is someone who we know does not have significant finances, talking to someone who does. No one on a first date should ever be talking about your money, your finances, your homes, your properties, your will. And no one should ever be assuming or thinking that it was acceptable to be written into your will or their name written into the deeds of your property. And sometimes they can be that obvious. I always used to worry about the scammer who was a slightly longer con. And of course, in the Tinder Swindler, he was a longer con. He started off spending money in restaurants and private jets, but then very quickly was doing a pyramid scheme and taking the money to pay for the next person that came along. So anytime, we can now say, not just online, but anytime someone wants to get their hands on your money, this is an issue. Yeah.
So, just reverting to my previous point about your friend, if it's happening to a friend of yours, I mean, what is the best way to go about it? Is it, do you suggest, come on then, if you're going to give them some money, you need to meet them, or give her some money, you need to be, what's the best thing to do?
Working with a friend, it's really, really hard. And one of the things that most people won't know, if you have an in-person scammer or even an online scammer, and the person has asked for money or asked for their name to be put on your house or whatever the scenario is, and you do so willingly. So you as an adult choose to transfer the money, or you choose to put their name on your house. If you as a friend were to contact Action Fraud in the UK, Crime Stoppers, contact the police, certainly in the UK and Europe, no action is taken, which is a huge shock. And no action is taken because it's deemed to be a person who, in their right mind, has chosen to do what they wish to do with their money. And so this is, you can see this happening. You can see that they're about to get scammed. All of the things they're being told, the fact they've been told to transfer funds, you can see the whole thing. None of the organisations will get involved until the point where you've transferred the money and discovered that it's a scam, discovered the person doesn't exist or has a different name or whatever scenario those people might find themselves in. So it's really, really hard as a friend to get third-party help. As for helping your friend directly, a lot of the time they simply won't believe you. And in order to persuade them, you might have to speak to some of their trusted friends to try to get them on board to persuade them. But often they're so caught up that what can end up happening is that they reject you. You really are the messenger with the news that they don't want. So you're the one that gets cut out of their life, not the scammer. So it is so hard as a friend to have this conversation because they simply often don't want to hear it. A couple of times I've managed to show people that they are being scammed and they believed me. And I was able to do it because I said, can you send me the correspondence that they've sent you? And I was able to cut and paste pieces of the correspondence into Google because there are a number of websites that do track some of the content. And a lot of the early content, as I mentioned, is generic. And so you can cut and paste into Google some of this. If you think that doesn't sound quite right, it sounds too good to be true, sometimes it comes up. And with two of the friends that were being scammed, I was able to show them that actually this was a common scam. But as you said right at the beginning, a lot of the people that are being scammed are actually above average intelligence. These are smart people. And there's one woman I know who's a CEO. She's a head of a number of companies. She's done incredibly well in her career. And she was telling me about a chap that she'd met, and he's got his plane, and he's got this, and he's got all of these interests. And there was just something about what she was telling me that did not ring true. And so I asked her to share some of the correspondence with me. And his very first message was an email to her email address, which of course we know when scammers get a hold of those, you can get all kinds of bizarre scams, saying that he'd seen her details on LinkedIn and wanted to reach out directly. And I said, well, if he's seen your details on LinkedIn, why didn't he just contact you on LinkedIn? And true enough, we tried to find this name on LinkedIn and it didn't fit at all with the guy and the name and what he did with the LinkedIn profile. And I didn't ask her to do this, but I fully imagine that if she had found someone with the same pictures or looking similar enough, they would have said, I have no idea what this scam is, and it's certainly nothing to do with me. But the scammers are getting really good at it. And so when you think about your online footprint, when you think about photographs that you might have shared on Facebook or Instagram, people that you might be connected to who might have tagged you in photographs, some of them are doing a huge amount of research. So they find you and they're able to look into your background. They're able to look at the things that you've done, the people you spend time with, so they can drop those things into the conversation and seem very natural. It can be so hard to know that you're being scammed. It can be so hard to know that people would be so devious. When you go into this with an open heart, you don't expect that people could take advantage of you. But it is a question of money. And the moment you start being asked to put your hand in your pocket and start paying for things for this person, that's when you know you have to stop. And it can be so hard because of the charm and because you're flattered by the attention. But that's the key is when you're asked to start spending money and putting cash down.
And as a professional matchmaker, what do you do to ensure that the people that you have on your books are there for the right reasons?
We always aim to make sure that anyone that comes to Drawing Down the Moon has the truest of intentions. We take details from them in terms of ID, verification check. We're looking at their addresses. We're looking proof of address. We are speaking on the phone. We're meeting in person, and we are doing to the fullest extent that we can, confirming that this person is who they say they are. The vast majority of people who are scamming, 99.9%, are not using their real name. They definitely do not want you to know what their address is, and they're not willing to sit in front of me and my team and be questioned on themselves, their background and their history. Scammers really want to go under the radar. They don't want people knowing what their real name is. They do not want people knowing where they live, what they do, what their address is, what their ID looks like, which of course we keep a copy of, because they want to be anonymous. They want to go in, get the money transferred, get it transferred straight out of that account into another account and move on to the next person. And a lot of people do not want to report this. A lot of the scams are never, ever reported.
They're too embarrassed.
They're too embarrassed. And the other scary thing that happens if the person is found out, or if the person does the scam and gets away with it, those persons' details are then very highly prized in the dark web. Those details are then sold on time and time again, because if you're vulnerable to one scam, you're vulnerable to another. And so if you're the family who's dealing with a scammer, who's protecting your elderly relative, because again, it is the bulk of people are older, you are then in danger, even when you get rid of that one scammer, that they will come back time and time again. So you have to be really aware of what your relative is up to. And that's the other thing I've got to tell you while I'm thinking about this. They try their best to make sure that no one finds out. So they will send you an email and they'll say, please delete this straight afterwards. Don't tell anyone that we're speaking. Don't tell anyone that I've sent you this list of how we're going to sell your homes and where we're going to live and how we're going to combine our finances. You must delete this. This is private. So what it's like the Bonnie and Clyde thing. They try to make you feel as though it's you two against the world. And of course, if relatives are worried or are saying things, or friends or neighbours are getting involved, again, it pushes you closer, pushes the victim closer to the scammer, not further away. So if you are getting these emails saying delete after reading, don't let anyone see this, keep this hidden, don't share this, don't share that, try not to get excited by the fun of it and realise that you're potentially in danger.
Okay, here's another thing. What about intimate pictures? What about if somebody asks you to send them, or they send an intimate picture to you and you are asked to reciprocate? Where are you in that?
This is fascinating again. So there has been a trend over the last 10, 15 years of the concept of sexting, of sending intimate pictures between you and a person that you're seeing. I would really, really, not from a prudish perspective or a faith-based perspective or moral perspective, never send these pictures to someone that if you want to send these pictures, fine, but only ever do it when you're in a committed relationship. Only ever do it with someone that when it comes down to it, down to brass tacks, they're not going to share. But always remember that anything that you send to someone else could ultimately be shared. But your question was a good one, because your question really was, are scammers using sexting to exploit and blackmail people? And the answer is definitely yes. And we're seeing this actually happen with a younger demographic. So we've talked slightly about an older demographic. And a younger demographic have grown up in a society, in a culture where sending these intimate pictures to a potential partner or possible partner is seen a bit like flirting. It's taken very lightly by some sections of the younger population. And quite often parents don't know about it. They don't know to tell their teen or their kid not to send these pictures. And so when they hear their friends are doing it, they think it's a normal thing. And so it's so important for parents to know about this, because there are lots of cases now of it really going badly wrong. And it's someone, again, pretending to be the right partner, pretending to be similar age. So if you're 18, 19, 20, they're also 18, 19, 20. And you're thinking, wow, this incredible, attractive human being is interested in me. And they're sending pictures that, again, they've stolen from the internet. And what happens can turn pretty bad pretty quickly, and they can end up being in a position where they're being blackmailed. If you don't send me money, so it's a very direct thing. This person is saying, I'm scamming here. If you don't send me money, I'm going to send these pictures to your friends. I'm going to send these pictures to your family. I'm going to send them to your college or university. And it is a horrendous issue. And one of the reasons it's so horrendous is that people are unsure of how they can carry on. They're so fearful of these pictures being public and then being ridiculed. And all they thought they were doing was doing the societal norm. All they thought they were doing was following on with what was expected in society today. And they're being caught out. And it's so important to have the conversation with your child that this is not to be, you cannot send these pictures out, number one, even if you are in a relationship with someone, but also to try and get your child to be open and honest about what they're doing in dating, so that if this happens, they can come to you, which I know is easier said than done.
Yeah. So basically, have your fun. If that's where, where you get your kicks and you have your fun, but it has to be in a very, very committed, safe space. If you have any doubt about what you're doing, do not do it, and be very aware that anything you share over a phone or an email can be shared, can be, not even if they want to share it, can be taken by somebody else.
Can be taken by someone else. And also, some people are not aware that if you are on a number of the communication devices, such as WhatsApp, such as Facebook Messenger, if you're doing a video call on Zoom or any other provider, you can tape your screen. Now, you don't get the sound, but you can video your screen, and the other person is not alerted to the fact that a video is being taken. So if you think to yourself, well, you know what, I don't really like the idea of sending pictures, but I will do something live on video. This could be fun. Be aware that the other person could be recording you. Be aware that they could be taking a video that is not necessarily private and discreet. So don't automatically think that you're safe from this. And there have been numerous examples of people being exploited later by someone that they were in a committed relationship with. So I think it's a really tricky one. I would tend to err on the side of caution and not be sending these pictures out at all, because you never know where those pictures might end up.
I think it's one of those things, you have to go in with an open mind. You have to go into dating, having being open to the fact that you're going to trust somebody. You have to trust somebody in the beginning, otherwise you're never going to get anywhere. But equally, it's very useful to have in the back of your mind, especially if you're starting from scratch. It's very useful to know like you say, the red flags to look out for. And God forbid, the majority of people out there are doing it with a good heart. It's just good to know, the siren call, the things that are really going to be, if it makes you feel uneasy, don't do it.
You've nailed it. And if you've not been dating for quite some time, you can start to question your own boundaries. Well, oh gosh, that's not how it was 20 years ago. That's not how it was a decade ago. Things have changed, and you can find yourself doing things that you feel really uncomfortable doing because you think, well, that's the way it's done. So the moment you start to question, is this what I should be doing? This doesn't feel right. I feel uncomfortable, but it's what is expected of me. You've got to stop. Yeah, because exactly as you said, you've got to, and I know you talked about this in another episode, it is important to trust your instincts. It is important to listen to those little tiny alarm bells telling you that something's wrong. And most people who have been scammed have said at some point, not all, but more, have felt there was something. Although what is it? Okay, hold on. Most people who've been scammed at some point will end up admitting there was something, but also there's a huge psychological hurdle to admitting anything at all. It can be almost too hard to bear that something's gone wrong and that you've been scammed. When it comes to the pictures, though, just to round it all off, I would avoid it if you can. You are not required as part of dating today to do anything like that. So don't let people con you into thinking it's a normal thing to do.
So, Gillian, what are the banks doing about this?
The banks are being brilliant, actually. The banks are working really, really hard. They know that their customers are losing money. They know that there's with scams, they may have to refund some of the money depending how it's scammed. When you're going to make a payment to someone, it now says, do you trust this person? Who are they? What have they done? Why are you sending them the money? The banks are producing reports every year. Lloyd's does a really great report on what is going on with romance scams, who is being scammed, why they're being scammed. So the banks are doing lots of keyword stuff to try and get their blogs and articles to the top of search engines so that we can all learn more about romance scams and the effect it's having on their clients and their clients' savings. Because the banks don't want this to happen. I mean, ultimately, it is your responsibility who you send your money to. But from my perspective and from what I've seen, the banks are doing a pretty good job of dealing with this. Although in some cases, if you're taking cash out, I think the banks could do a better job. They're not always grilling people as well as they could be if the romance scam involves cash sums, which of course it sometimes does. But overall, in balance, I think the banks are doing a pretty good job of trying to help their clients avoid being scammed.
And if you aren't sure about somebody, you can't. Why not confide in a friend or, just kind of share your unease, or you can go online and Google fraudster and see whether it's mimicking any of the stuff that you're being told, but you're saying that until anything officially, until there is, until you officially know that you've been defrauded, you basically there's not many places you can go to.
Absolutely right. There's not many places right now that you can go to. And unfortunately, it means that you are at a bit of a dead end if you're a family who is working really hard to try and to protect a relative, short of persuading the person that this is what's going on, or short of saying, well, look, it must be because they are in some way diminished that they're being caught up in this, and therefore trying to get some kind of control over their finances, some kind of a power of attorney. It is extremely hard to prevent it from happening if the person doesn't believe you. So it really is about trying to get as much evidence as you can, trying to show them in what ways this is not normal, sending people large quantities of money, trying to get them to see what's going on. And failing that, you have to be there to support them afterwards, because the fraudsters do know that it's very hard for them to be stopped before the crime. Incredibly hard to stop them. So they do have a bit of a license there. So when you see someone who's a lot younger, when they're ticking all the boxes, when when their job is dangerous or further away, when they've got really good reasons for not meeting. During COVID, I was so worried because you couldn't leave your house. So people could claim to be in New York, claim to be in Miami, and be millions of miles away. So it is about just being aware. Most people who are online are not out to scam you, but there are a high proportion of people that are trying to get the right wording, the right terminology to get you hooked. So I would do what I would with any of these situations. Take everyone that approaches you with a grain of salt. Get to meet people as quickly as possible. You're not online looking for a pen pal. You're online because you want to find love. So when you start to have a conversation with someone, how quickly can they meet? If someone really does work on an oil rig or another country, you don't want to date with them anyway. You don't want a long distance relationship, right? You want to meet someone who's in your town, who's within half an hour of where you are, and you want to date them. And there's plenty of people that fit that demographic. So find someone who's not a pen pal, who's going to go on a date with you, send 2 or 3 messages, and then meet up. You're not looking for perfection online, the perfect grammar, the perfect pictures. You're looking for a real human being who you can have a long-term, loving relationship with. But just note those scammers before they reel you in.
And actually, one of the things I think has been interesting that I've taken from this conversation is actually that the apps are doing you a favor. Yes, you want to meet somebody and then come off the app, but actually, the apps are there. I think sometimes the apps get a bad rap, but actually there's a safety aspect about being on the app.
Without a doubt, there's a safety aspect of being on the app and staying in the app. Don't get off the app. You can go on a date with someone and not know what their phone number is. You can go on a date with someone and you've organized the whole thing within the app, and off you go. Sometimes it's nice to have their number in case you might be running late, but it's not a reason to switch. There is no good reason. I don't want to hear the credits have run out or their memberships run out or there's always an excuse. Don't accept it. Stick the app. Stick online.
And if you think it could never happen to you, watch The Tinder Swindler, because he honestly, I'd have gone for it. Who wouldn't? You slyly watch it with your mouth open, but those women that came forward and were prepared to go on camera, good on them, because golly, they come out of it. He looks like the idiot in the end, and they come out of it as really strong, lovely people. And it's like anything. If somebody's out to diddle you, sadly they're not a nice person. And
yeah, you've nailed it. They were bright, capable, intelligent, beautiful women, and they so deserve to find love. So perhaps my final message can be, if you were someone that was getting swindled by the Tinder swindler, contact me, contact my company. I would love to help you find true love. Please let me know. I'm going to help you date safely.
Gillian is the love guru. Here endeth the lesson for today. Thanks, Gillian. So good to see you, and always, always wonderful to chat. I've learnt so much today. Thank you.
Thank you, Carole. You are a wonder. I love your questioning style. I love the way that we do these things, and I'm learning from you as well. So thank you so much. See you soon.